So welcome to building a Godot plugin with GDExtension. I'm Scott, joined with Justin. So if you have any questions, I can run around and help you. I do have an announcement. The folks from ARM are here during the event. And if you've used any of their SDKs, libraries, tooling, they'd like to hear from you, your experiences. And I guess tour participants will receive a $20 gift card and an ARM branded bag and keyring as a thank you. So just wanted to. Oh, is this not on? Oh, it is on. It's just I'm distance. All right, I'll move closer to it. Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. So did you guys hear about the ARM thing? Kind of. Barely. All right. All right. We'll try it again. So the folks from ARM are here during GodotCon. And if you used any of their SDKs or libraries, they want to hear from you. And they'll give you a $20 gift card, a branded bag, and a keyring. That's a thank you. So, yeah. All right. Cool. Right. Will that go away? No? It won't go away. Come on. This worked great last night. It's not working great now. Okay, there we go. Awesome. All right, cool. So for this talk, I have a website that you can follow along with, and you can use your QR code to grab it. Obviously, the QR code will put it on your phone, but if you type in doxey.link/GodotCon-Boston-2025, you'll be able to copy and paste all the code that I'm using in the workshop. So that way we don't have to type everything. There's a lot of code to get through, and I just want to make sure that everyone has everything they need to get things going. So that link is on the bottom of every slide. So if you ever need to refer back to it. And this page will be online after this event, so you can always refer back to it if you want. We good? Cool. All right. A little bit about me. I am a games and tools developer, mostly tools. I've worked with Unity, but about 2 years ago, for some bizarre reason, I started looking at other game engines. So I looked at Unreal and Godot. I've spent more time in Godot. I've enjoyed it a lot more. It also works better on my MacBook Air. Uh, a lot of what I build is in open source. It's kind of something I've been doing for ages, and it's kind of a way to like force myself to build in the open and with the expectation that someone may see it. I don't tell anyone that it's out there. So sometimes people find it and will give me feedback on it, but I don't know, it's a little disconnect from building stuff in open source but not telling anyone. A little personal growth issue, I guess. I'm currently building my own game engine. This was something that came out of looking for a new home after Unity. So kind of an insane move, and I'm building a multi-game engine tool for building rhythm games. And it works in Unity, Unreal, Godot, SDL, and Monogame. And this is kind of what brings me here today, because I wrote the plugin in C++ and it works in Godot using a GDExtension. So, yeah. The outline of the workshop, prerequisites, I mean, those were pretty much sent out to everyone. So we'll kind of just breeze through all that. We're going to build an empty plugin from scratch, just like putting it together with the bare bones, not using a GitHub template or anything. So you know exactly what goes into making the template. We're going to load in a simple header library, just something that has just does a little bit of math. We're going to extend a node with custom logic. We're going to take a Sprite 2D and add animations to it. We're going to add to that same component getters and setters that will allow us to change properties of that component in Godot. We're going to add some signals so we can know when something happens. We're going to talk about converting data. That's more generalist. It's not specific to the component. And then the automations via GitHub Action. This is the part that I didn't know that there was an existing template repo out there that already had all this work done. And I suffered through it and did it myself. So you can either use theirs or you can use mine. Doesn't matter. But now I know what goes into it because because I built it. So, I mean, I feel like that's a lot of this, like just building stuff from scratch and learning how everything works is kind of. Now I'm rambling. All right. So the prerequisites. I mean, you said everyone is already good with this stuff, so I can just blow through all this. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through all that. This stuff is here just for you to refer back to if you want. Go ahead. Sure.
I saw that it uses Microsoft Code, VS Code.
Yeah.
Is it okay if we're in Visual Studio?
Oh, I don't even think I'm not even gonna use that. I'm probably gonna use Zed. I mean, I just had an example of something that people could use. The only reason for Visual Studio to be on a Windows machine is for the C++ package that's installed with it, and that is required to get scons to work. That is something that I didn't know until I ran through the workshop with a bunch of friends, and they didn't have that installed, but I did. So I thought they didn't need it. So, you know. So if you don't have that installed, do you have that installed? Like Visual Studio?
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Cool.
years ago.
Sure. Just check. All right. So to set up the repo, I'm actually just going to switch over to the web page that has this exact thing. So I'm not going to be using these slides anymore. But we're just going to set up a repo, add a README to it, and then we're going to clone down the Godot CPP repo and then check out a specific branch. So I'm just going to kind of switch into. And I didn't get a chance to check the size and everything. So bear with me as I kind of resize all this
As
stuff.
we're going, if anyone has any questions
Oh, yeah.
or starts to fall behind, just raise their hand and I can come over and help you catch up.
Yeah, there's enough content for us to get through all of this with some breathing room. So if you have any questions, just let us know. All right. Was that, maybe I can make that a little bigger? Is that better? Maybe? Yeah. All right. So I'm just gonna do this right on the desktop. Come on. All right. So I'm just gonna make a new repo, Godot CP plugin. And I have a thing that will show all of my key commands. Does anyone want to see that? Or are we good with me just coding? I don't know. I can turn it on, and if it's obnoxious, I can turn it off. Yeah? Okay. We'll see. That gets a little crazy. Okay.
Nice.
Like I said, it's a little nuts. I thought it might be helpful, but all right. Oop. All right. Okay. So, okay. Well, that's crazy. It gets a little nuts. I can't even see anything. All right. I'm going to turn it off. If we need it again, I can turn it back on. I'm sorry. It was like filling up the entire screen. All right. So, so I've set up Git repo, added a README. The next step is, whoa, what? Okay. All right. Is adding the sub module. And just a quick note, I'm adding the sub module using HTTPS and not the typical SSH. And I'm doing this because in experimentation with the GitHub action, if I'm running the GitHub action from another repo, because one of the projects I have, all of the code for every single game engine is in one repo, one mono repo, but I wanted the GitHub plugin to be in something else. It was easier to work with just the HTTPS URL for the submodule than it was to deal with SSH. So that's the reason for this, if you were wondering. Go ahead and check that out. Oh my God. I was actually really worried about how fast that would happen here on the Wi-Fi, and that was amazing. So yeah. All right. So now that I've checked this out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that repo and I'm going to check out a specific tag. So for this talk, I'm using Godot 4.4 on my computer, and I'm going to check out the 4.4 branch of Godot CPP. And technically, you're supposed to be able to use the branch for, say, 4.3. Oh, there's a question. Yeah, go.
Yeah, do you mind just briefly explaining what this submodule is?
Sure. Sorry. Yes, that's probably a good thing. So Godot CPP is the data bindings for the API of Godot. So the goal of this repo is to kind of have one-to-one API, like uh, like one-to-one API with Godot itself. So like you'll actually see as we get in further into the talk, you'll see that some of the code that I will copy from Godot almost looks identical to the code that's going to be in here, which is amazing. So one of the things I've actually been thinking about doing is trying to build my next game in Godot just entirely as a GD extension, just like have everything in C++. Um, I've been learning C++ for a couple of years and I actually really love it. So the fact that I can use it and use Godot, it's kind of amazing. I know that they're not at 100% one-to-one with the API right now, but I think the goal is that we'll eventually get there. So sorry, I guess I probably should have explained that. Running through the workshop a million times, you think you have everything, but you actually do not. Thank you for asking. All right, so I'm in that repo. I'm now going to check out the 4.4 stable branch. I'm just going to do that. Going to check it out, and then I'm going to go back up to the main repo, and I'm just going to commit that change. Cool. All right. So
Was that something we were supposed to do too?
commit or
We
the
can add in the line.
I mean, I've just I'm paranoid I'm going to make a mistake, so I'm just committing every single change I do up here, so that way I can revert if I need to. So you don't have to commit everything, but the only thing that you would need to do is check out the submodule and check out the submodule and switch to the correct branch. So
Practicing safe code, I like it.
yeah, I mean, I'm up here doing live coding. I'm expecting I'm going to screw something up. So committing every change, you know.
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
It says commit changes in the slide, and then on my terminal it says there's no changes to commit. So what did you commit?
Did you go back up to the main branch?
Oh, I missed that.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. So
In the slides.
Thank you.
also, if you have any suggestions for the talk itself, I'm planning on, like I said, keeping that page up. So I will continue to improve that page and add stuff to it. So I'm kind of using it as like a living document.
How do we submit changes? Is there a?
I mean, I'll be on the Discord. I'm on the Godot Discord, so you can just message me there. Yeah. I mean, it's also on a public website, so. Are we good now? Okay, cool. Yeah, of course. All right, so now we're gonna build with scones. So scones is the build pipeline that Godot CVP uses, and we're gonna use that as well. It's similar-ish to CMake and how it allows you to build a bunch of different projects together. CMake is, we're not friends. Scones is similar-ish, but hey, at least it's in an actual language. So it's in Python. So it's easier to read. So we're gonna quickly set up a really simple example. We're not gonna go too crazy into what is in that in the scones setup. Our goal is to just get the Godot CPP project to build. So, and that's gonna take a while. So we're gonna set up the rest of the steps after we get that going. So the S construct file is our config for scones. So I'm going to create that in the root of the directory. So not the CVP repo, but the plugin itself.
For the GDExtension, do you have?
I'm just going to copy this. Paste that in there.
Did you sign up for it? I did sign up for it. Okay.
And then I'm going to create a git ignore, and this git ignore is going to include this scons cache that I've manually set right here. This is going to come into play when we talk about the GitHub action. So the automation through CI, we're going to be using this exact same cache folder. So we're just setting it up now. So that way, both the Godot CVP S construct file and our project are using the same cache. Because once you build it, it might take like 3-5 minutes, depending on your computer. You won't have to wait for that again. It'll just happen instantly. So.
So is S construct literally just that name, not a file
Yeah.
extension?
Yeah, I mean, you could put a file extension on it, but if you look, you'll see the hashbang at the top of it. So it just treats it as like a bash that switches into the Python. Yeah, switches into Python. So
Is that name specific though?
it is, yeah.
Or did you call it?
I think it's specific because when you type scons, like when you type the command line, it will find that and just run it. So I think you can add py to it, but I haven't because I haven't seen it in examples like that. So all right.
Sorry, I couldn't run construct in the plugin.
Couldn't run what?
I tried to
Oh, so we're adding that file. Sorry, we're adding that file and then we're gonna run scons after we add that file. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm using Vim, and I'm using Vim, which is crazy because I'm not actually good at Vim. I just figured it'd be easier than like opening up an editor. So if anyone is actually good at Vim, I'm so sorry. I apologize because I've watched people use Vim in presentations and they're like masters of their craft. I am bumbling through this, so I know how to get out of Vim. That's like half the battle, right?
Don't do it.
Someday I'll learn Vim. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'm that cool. All right. So I have those two files. I have the S construct file and the git ignore. I'm going to add those to my git. All right. And then I'm going to run scons. So I'm running scons, just scons. Now what this is going to do, this is going to go through the Godot CVP repo and it's going to generate a whole bunch of files. So if you already have an existing repo that you're running, you're building a plugin and you're downloading it to your machine for the first time, you might have a lot of errors where it says, hey, I'm missing a header or I'm missing some file. That's because in Godot CVP, it will actually build these headers. So the headers will be missing until you run it the first time. Go ahead.
So running scons in my project, scons is not command with fail.
Oh, are you on Mac? Mac? Did you run the brew setup?
And I could run it from when I cloned the source code, I could run scons there.
Weird. Do you want to take a look?
Take a look.
Yeah.
Try opening another terminal.
Yeah. I guess, is anyone else running into an issue? Like everyone? Sure.
What is this on? Probably not.
Oh, sorry. I could have just opened another terminal.
It's just
I thought- yeah.
Oh, terminal. It's just a problem.
Yeah, we're gonna add a whole bunch of stuff to it that's gonna tell like where our plugin is, but right now
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
always
saying,
fun.
hey. Also, if you look at the script, it's pointing at the S-construct file in Godot. So like we're telling it to look at their script. So we're looking at their config first, and then we're gonna have.
Honestly, half the nice thing I'm using these abilities, I can use a sane term.
Are you all?
Yeah, I'm good. They were user error. All learning.
Okay. All right. Cool. So I guess any questions up until this point? We've only just run it. So we haven't actually built anything yet, but we're gonna get to the good stuff, I promise. This is just the part that takes forever.
All good projects.
Yeah.
Setup.
The build pipeline is the worst. Go ahead.
Yeah, and like it's the worst the first time you do it because it's building all this stuff.
Yeah, so on my MacBook Air, it might take 5 minutes. I mean, it's a great computer for doing web development, but everything else it kind of slows down. But once you build it the first time, those files will be on your computer, so it'll realize that there aren't any changes. So if you make changes to your plugin, it'll rebuild those, but it will skip over this.
Could you take these and just use this directory for a different plugin, or do you recommend rebuilding at the start of each plugin?
I would, if you had two separate plugins, I would recommend building it each time. I mean, you probably could, but
Website again?
I don't know if I trust computers enough for that to work. Yeah.
Be worried about any kind of dependency.
Yes.
That is out.
And so like this takes 5 minutes here. On GitHub Actions, it takes about a half an hour. So as you can imagine, someone building that from scratch, not knowing there was an existing template that already had all of these problems solved, that problem took a lot of Netflix shows to get through. So, all right, I think we might actually almost be done. But yeah, so I thought I saw another hand, but hey, oh, Justin's helping out. All right, cool. So yeah, so we can move on to the next step. Maybe. Sure. All right. I'll open up a new terminal and whoa. Okay. We're good. We're good. Okay, cool. All right. So up until this point, we've only built the Godot CPP project with scones. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build an empty plugin. Not even going to add any code to it. We're just going to build it. So I'm just going to add this file right here. So C++ knows where my files are. So I'm going to be adding files in my local include directory that I'm going to make. And now I'm also pointing at the Godot CPP library. So you'll see there's a GDExtension, folder of generated includes. So this is all the stuff that if you didn't run scones, it would be missing these and includes. So I'm just going to copy this, make this file. Oops. So technically that file should work in most text editors. You might need to add a CLang extension to like VS Code or whatever, but some should just pick up on that on its own. If anyone has an issue with that, once we get to the actual code and things aren't, you're getting red squiggly lines everywhere, we can figure that out. All right, I'm just gonna skip over the format for now. So the next step is to create a GDExtension config. So this is specific to our plugin. The entry symbol is going to map directly to a C++ method that we're going to set up. The compatibility minimum, I'm setting it to 4.4. I had done some previous testing with 4.3 and I ran into some issues, so I figured we'll just keep it simple. Building everything with 4.4 for now, running it in 4.4. Yeah, definitely going to do some more research into that later. Reloadable will make it so that you don't have to close Godot every single time you make a change to your library, which is, of course, time consuming. But if you're building it using all of the debug, which is what we're going to be doing, you won't have to reload Godot. So your changes should show up right away. And these libraries, these are the ones that we're going to be making with scones. So currently it'll point to whatever you're making on your machine. So if you're on Linux, it'll be pointing to Linux, Windows, Mac OS. The GitHub action will automatically generate all of these and then commit them to the repo. So they'll all be in there using the same paths. Thing to note, all of these are hard-coded specific to this package. So like this plugin, so like I have Godot CPP plugin, like lib Godot CPP plugin. So like that's all specific to the one that we're building today. When you make your own, you'll just go through and change just those to whatever matches your plugin.
So would that name match the name of this?
It can match the name of the repo. It can be whatever. The only thing...
Think we said that somewhere, that it would need to match, or is it just this file that it's?
Just this file is handwritten, but in the scones file, you're gonna write it once, and it will just spit all those out. The only thing that needs to match anything is the entry symbol, and that's just gonna match the C++ method that we're gonna add. We're gonna add that in a couple steps down. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this to the repo as well. Let's copy that in. And now I'm going to set up some include files, and I'm just going to set them up really quickly so that they're in there, and then I'll kind of go through each one of them and explain what's going on in them. Oop, oh, geez. Told you I'd have problems spelling things. Can't even spell include. All right. So I've created two new files. I have a header file that has two methods in it: initialize and uninitialize Godot CPP plugin. So these are named specifically for something that I've written. You can name them whatever you want, but they need to be used with very specific methods down here at the bottom. So this file you'll probably write once and never touch again. This one down here, so we're setting up the initialize Godot CPP plugin method. And this is where you're going to register anything that you make for your plugin in here. You're going to register your static classes. You're going to register your components that you make. Anything that you make will end up in here. And anything that you need to kind of clean up will be in this method. In all of the plugins that I've made, I haven't really needed to use this. This has pretty much been left empty. Like if you're building stuff with components, you'll definitely not put anything in here. But if you need to do any memory management or cleanup with that, it'll end up in this method right here. And again, with a lot of these files that I'm showing you right here, these are all boilerplate. Like you're just going to write this once and maybe add a file, like add a line or remove a line. You're not really going to be spending a lot of time in here. And this down here is just another thing that Godot is looking for. This is the Godot CPP plugin entry. So this is the exact name that we had added in the GDExtension component or config file. And so this is what connects our plugin to Godot. So we have our register initializer and register terminator, and these are pointing to the methods that we made above. These will let Godot know how to set stuff up and how to tear stuff down. And I've never entirely understood what is going on here and why this is needed, but I'm sure someone does. I don't know. If you don't have it in there, it doesn't work. So I'd add it. I am also just learning all of this stuff. Like I've been using it a lot, but I feel like I have so much more to learn. Yeah, so that's it for those files. We're definitely going to come back to this one and add our initializers in here, but for the most part, this will stay exactly the same. So previously we had our sconstruct file just pointing at the Godot CPP sconstruct, but now we're going to add a whole bunch of stuff to it. So we're going to add our include files, and make sure we set up our source files. And this is where we're going to build our plugin. So I'm just setting this as like a reference here. This folder is where we're going to actually generate our plugin that we're going to end up copying into Godot. And this is where the automatic like these files are generated. So this is that lib Godot CPP. Oh my God, what did I do? Oh God. Oh God, it's over. Well, I don't even know where I am anymore. It's gone. All right, hang on. So I haven't given a talk or a workshop since before COVID. Is it obvious? I think it's obvious. It feels obvious. Thanks. Oh, I just blew past everything. Okay. All right. Where was I? Okay. I'm going to try not to right click and get out of there. All right. So this is where it generates all of those files that were in the Godot extension. So if I scroll back up, which is what I was trying to do before, all of these will be generated through this section down here. So this one has a specific section for Mac OS because we're making a framework file, and then everything else will just automatically be handled by scons. And we're just giving it the name of the plugin, and that's it. And this right here will just copy the GDExtension file into our add-ons folder. So because that doesn't happen automatically. And then just a couple of setup things. And that's it for our modified sconstruct file. With this file, You probably won't modify it again unless you have to add an additional static file. Everything else will just be handled automatically through scons. So I'm going to copy this and paste it over the existing scons file, and then we're going to run it again, and we'll see the files that are generated through this new config. I'm sure there's a better way to delete all those lines with Vim, but I'm just going to delete them all one at a time. Cool. All right. All right, so now that we've run scons once, this should run pretty quickly. Scons again. Yeah, and you'll see that it's picking up on the new files that I added. So this one right here. So I'm going to go to the build directory. Oh, wow, that's really tiny. And then we have our plugin in here. So we have the GDExtension, and we have the framework specific to my platform, Mac OS. There are ways to build for Windows on Mac OS using other things that you can install, but I found it to be much easier to just kind of work on your own platform, push the code, and run a build on GitHub Actions and just have it done for you. So everyone okay with that? All right. Cool. Oh, I did miss an entire step. And that would be why I have changes here. So one of the things that will happen when we build our plugin and not just the Godot CVP plugin is it will generate temporary files that you need to add to the git ignore. So I'm just going to just add that in there. Oh, I did not copy it. Okay, there we go. All right, cool. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to make a very simple library. This is going to represent if you were building a plugin that extended an existing C++ library, maybe a header library or whatever. This is a very simple version of how that would work. So in this example, this is my header library. Obviously, very simple. Just taking a lerp and an inverse lerp, and we're going to expose that to Godot using using a static method. So I'm going to create a new HPP file. I'm just going to put that in the include directory. Right, and now I'm going to create a file specific to loading in things like that. So this one, I'm just calling it the exact same name of my plugin, just kind of keeping the namespace the same. And what we're going to do in here is we're going to create a brand new class. We're going to extend an object class, and this object is coming from Godot. And this is how we will create these classes that Godot can read. This macro here is something that kind of does a whole bunch of setup on your class, and this is required for every class that you make in GDExtension, as is this bind methods. So sometimes this might be empty, like if you're extending a node or doing something that doesn't require you to use this, but it is required regardless of whether or not you're using it. I believe it will throw an error when you build it, not in the actual editor itself. And then I'm creating two public methods, lerp and inverse lerp, just matching the library exactly. And then down here, I'm creating the actual methods themselves, pointing the my plugin to that header library. And now this is where Godot will learn about where these methods are. So using this class right here, this class and method, class DB bind static method, I will pass using the name, like the namespace, Godot CVP plugin, the name of the method and each property, and then point at that method. There are ways you can add documentation to this, so it will show up in the Godot editor with a header file, but I didn't get to that in this workshop. I believe there might be an example in the template that they have on the Godot repo or GitHub repo. I feel like it might be going a little fast. Is everyone? Oh, sorry. Okay. Is that everything good there? I mean, we're gonna run it, and I'll kind of show you how it works. But all right. Okay, so I'm gonna finish building out these files, and then we will build it and load it into Godot and actually run it. All right. So now that I've created this kind of entry point for my plugin, we need to not just let Godot know where these, where the methods are using this static method, but we need to let it know where this file is. So we're going to include this file in our register types, and we're going to add it as a virtual class using this GDEregister virtual class macro. So if you click through this, you'll kind of see the stuff that it's doing. Just a shortcut for being able to register that. So I'm going to copy that in there, and then we're going to run scons again. I feel like I should just, I got to stop making a fool of myself with Vim. I'm sorry. I'm just going to use a text editor. I can't. I'm not good. I got pretty far, but I'm getting nervous. I'm gonna have to like move up and down a line. That's just, I don't know how to do that. All right, so I'm including that library. I mean that file that we created, and then I'm gonna add this inside the initialize Godot CVP plugin. Do that. Oh my god, it formatted it weird. I don't like it. Hope I didn't like upset a lot of people like I just upset myself. Where the brackets are. All right. I'm just gonna add that to added example plugin. I'm gonna run scons again. And it will pick up on my new files and the changes I've made to the register types. And now we have a plugin that we can load into Godot. Very exciting. Yeah.
Anyone have any issues with that scon command? That's a big one. Yep.
What's that? I mean, fair.
Go ahead. What was your thoughts?
I'm just having issues with installation.
Okay.
All right. See if Justin can help out there. I'm just going to create a brand new Godot project. And I'm going to load that plugin in there. So just going to create it on the desktop.
So are you able to just create a Godot project straight into the same repo?
You could. Okay. One of the things that I spent some time trying to figure out how to do was to make it so that we could kind of have a shared SCons, like where it would copy all of the changes into the Godot project. And I realized that might get a little complicated depending on if people had their projects in different places and for different platforms. So I figured, seeing as it takes 2 seconds to copy it over, we'll just copy over the builds. If you were actually doing this and building an actual plugin, you would probably have like a symlink setup or add an additional line to the sconstruct file that would copy it over for you. So not exactly best practice what I'm doing right now, but yeah. All right.
Oh, here we go.
Cool. So, Godot. All right, so I have both my projects on my desktop. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy over the add-ons folder into my new Godot folder. I don't see any errors, which is fantastic. I was a little worried about that. Everyone all set with that step? Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. It tells you right away when you mess something up, and I have done that many times while running through this workshop, trying new things. Oh yeah, no, it gets very angry when you load something in that's broken. So cool. All right, so now I'm gonna create a new scene.
Oh, that's.
Add a empty node. I'm gonna add a test script. And I'm just gonna go in here. Whoa, that's way too many spaces there. All right, go ahead and add. Oh, can I? Oh, hey, that's awesome. I didn't even know you could do that. Sweet. All right. In this node, I'm just gonna add a. Just in the ready function, I'm just gonna point to this Godot CVB plugin. So if you click through this, you can actually see the methods that we created. So we have lerp and inverse lerp here. And this is where you'd see that documentation if you added whatever file you can add to do that. And then I'm just going to run lerp 0, 10, look for the value in the middle, and let's hope this works. Oh, right, I forgot.
Yes, the Godot stuff. Yep. So there's gonna be.
It says 5.0.
I think the C might need to be checked for us.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're all good with that. We all got a value.
Yeah, I built the plugin and dropped it in the add-ons folder, but it's
And now,
not,
now take that content.
I don't get this Godot CPP plugin as an option.
Is there an error that shows up in the console or?
Yeah, because you have to run line highlight.
Let me try.
So let's just going down the list.
Oh.
Got it. Here we go. What is that? We got that. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
There should be, that's okay, there should just be a bunch of files in there. There should be at least one file. Besides the GDExtension.
I mean, Scotland was the actual.
What version of?
One month mix.
But that would be.
I did not.
No, it's all good.
There should be like a static library. Or like a
That's it.
Thank you so much. I can look into that after this.
I can get any more questions. That's your education.
What do you do? Are you using a plate? What are you?
So are you good, Justin? Everything good?
Does anyone else have any other questions getting to this part?
Cool. All right. So the next section, we're going to switch into making a custom node. All right.
It generated planets, but you already took API. But it generated
Oops.
planets and like yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
So how we feeling about the first part of the workshop? We're good? Thumbs up. Yeah, we got stuff running. Cool. All right. So now we're going to switch over to taking a Sprite 2D. We're just going to copy and paste this into Godot, but we're going to take a Sprite 2D, add some animations to it, and then we're going to take that code and turn it into a GD extension. So a GD extension component. So, all right. I'm just going to take this right here. Create a new node. I'm going to do a Sprite 2D.
Oh really? It doesn't take that long.
We'll load our little guy in here. Then I'm going to add a camera 2D.
Come back to it.
And then go back to the sprite, create a new script. I'm going to call it screensaver. Paste this guy on top. So just a quick overview of the script. I just caching some variables in here, getting the size of the viewport, getting the size of the sprite, and then I'm just doing some basic math here just to bounce it around the screen like a DVD screensaver. Just to give it some fun. I'm gonna go ahead and save that. And then hit play. Boop. Boop. I actually thought about spending time to like make sure the math would give us a perfect bounce in a corner. But then I realized I was spending more time on the wrong parts of the workshop than the right parts. Oh my god. No, okay, never mind. All right. We could just sit here and just watch it just like The Office, just like all waiting for it to get to the corner. But all right, so now that we have this, we're gonna take almost the exact same code and we're gonna put that into C++, which is pretty awesome. All right, so I'm gonna create a header file and a source file. I'm just gonna drop this stuff in here. So we got pretty much the exact same stuff that we did the last time we made a class, but in this case, we're gonna extend Sprite 2D. So just like how we did it in Godot, where we made a Sprite 2D node, and then we added code to it, we're now creating a new class called Screensaver off of Sprite 2D using the same GD class macro that we used in the previous class, but in this case, instead of using object, we're using Sprite 2D. Copying over the speed that we had in that class, the screen size, the sprite size, the initial direction, of course, the bind method. And so I'm using ready and process here. But in this case, if you write a script in Godot that uses ready on top of this node, it will cause issues. The only reason I'm using ready in this case is because it is a one-to-one matchup to the script that was written in Godot. So there's stuff in the documentation about a better way of doing that, but in this case, I just kind of wanted to show just the one-to-one. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that into our project. Whoa. Okay, that was embarrassing. I'm sorry. I pasted an entire script into the command line.
Not before two.
Yeah. So close to what I wanted to do. All right. So that was the header file. So in the source file, I'm just going to go back to my slide. So in the source file, we're doing pretty much the exact same thing. So I'm going to go to Godot and just kind of switch back and forth. So in the ready, I'm grabbing the screen size, viewport rect size, sprite size, get rect size. And there it is. Same exact thing in C++. So we're pretty much just copying it over, adding the semicolons, and then we're good to go. I've definitely copied and pasted from Godot into C++ and hit save and just watched my IDE just like lose its mind, being like, no, you're missing too much here. You can't do this. But most of the time you can get a lot out of that. So like the only thing I had to add was get position and store that as a local value so I could change the properties and then set it at the bottom. In this case, I'm just changing it directly. But yeah, it's pretty much the exact same thing. Which I don't know about you, but that's really cool. That's to the thing I was talking about earlier, where Godot CPP is trying to be one-to-one with the API in Godot. So this is kind of a way to showcase that. All right, so that was creating the header and the source file. So now we're going to go back into our register types. I'm going to grab this include, drop that in there, and then previously we used GDEregister virtual class, but in this time we're going to use GDEregister runtime class. I haven't really looked into exactly what all of these do, but I can assure you this works for the case that we need. All right, so now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and build it. I'm going to run a commit first because, just in case I blow everything up. All right, I'm going to run scons. It'll pick up our new files and our changes to the register types. All right. Now, if I go back to desktop, I should be able to copy over this framework file into my GDExtension. Whoa.
You were saying ideally you probably get similar.
Yeah, so like on Mac, it's super easy. You just symlink it, but on Windows, I couldn't find something as fun for that. And I'm not as good with Linux. I'm sure you could probably just symlink it there too, but I figured for the sake of this workshop, it's probably just easier. I mean, we don't do it this many times, so yeah. If you're actually actively building something, you're going to want a better pipeline for that, so you don't go crazy. But all right, so now I'm back into Godot. I don't see any errors, which makes me very happy. So I'm going to close this out. Actually, sorry, close out the wrong one. Close that, close that. I'm going to remove the sprite 2D. And that's the one that has my script on it. I'm going to remove that. Yep. And I'm going to go click plus, and I'm going to type in screensaver. And now you can see I have a new custom node under sprite 2D called screensaver.
This is another one of those big steps, so if anyone
Yeah.
can't see screensaver, let me know.
Yep.
Or let
Yeah, if you don't see screensaver, you do have to run a build again. Yes, you do have to run a build, and that's when copying the files over is that's what I was. Yep.
That's what it is.
Is everyone else okay with this step? Cool. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and add the screensaver component node to my scene. Switch back to 2D. I'm gonna go ahead and add the texture back. And then if everything is gonna go according to plan, if I hit play, we got our first custom node in C++. Okay, sure. That's not bad. The question's not bad.
So we extended Sprite to the.
Yep.
Do we need to give a different line to have it have the same icon? Because it just looks like a regular node in here.
Yeah. I think that might have something to do with the documentation part that I didn't get to.
Okay.
Maybe. if it is, I will definitely add that to the slides after this. But yeah, I definitely noticed that it was just that boring little circle. But it'd be cool to add the DVD logo to it so people know exactly what they're selecting.
The second question I had is I went to click the dock next to that node
Mhm.
and as a boring circle with no script next to it,
Mhm.
sort of hidden as to what it's doing.
Sure.
And I was wondering what sort of the missing steps to be able to see sort of the code behind the scenes. 'Cause if you click docs, it says it comes.
Yeah. So that's the part that I was talking about, where there is a file that you can add for every single thing that you add in GD. Sorry, in not in the GD script, but in Godot CBP. When you're making this plugin, there are files you can add that kind of map to everything. I know that they map to static methods. I'm not sure about the node. I assume that they would have that, but again, something I'll probably look at and update the talks with. So yeah. Cool. So we're all set to move on to the next step.
Scott.
Yeah.
Why does it bounce around the corner? Any idea why?
Bounce around the corner.
Around the corner of the the screen. Yeah.
It's like it's bouncing out of the window.
Yeah, from the
Oh.
origins in the upper left.
Oh, do you have the camera 2D in there?
You have to add the camera 2D.
Yeah, yeah. So the camera 2D is what gives it like the
I think I missed that
outline.
part.
Yeah, it's all right.
Oh, yeah. There it is. Yep.
I thought about making it so everyone had to download the DVD logo so we could really feel like we were part of it, but I was like, this guy's already in there. He's ready to go. So
That's easy.
What are we saying? Just saying.
oh, were you what branch were you on? Oh, right. Yeah. So everything blew up on master. I mean, that's good to know. Yeah. I did think that I should try just going nuts and trying it on master sometime, but now maybe I think I'll hold off for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of methods.
Cool.
To implement.
All right.
It's basically kind of like a green.
So for good, I'll move on to the next step. So the next step is adding getters and setters. So in the previous GD script, we had the speed exported, so it was available to modify in the inspector. So when you clicked on the sprite 2D, I can just add it back, show you. Sprite 2D. Load. Yeah, so up here I have the speed available to modify as well as the texture. But if I come back to the screensaver, that speed is gone. So our next step is to add that speed property back in. So to do that, right under where it says speed in our screensaver class, I'm going to add these two methods in the header. So set speed with an int value and get speed. So the reason I'm creating two methods here is because for making getters and setters in Godot CPP, you have to set both of those as separate methods so that the plugin can see how to actually make that change in the editor. And I'll go into detail about that in a moment. So I'm just going right here and pasting those in there. So now I have the speed and the set speed and get speed. And it doesn't matter that these are in private because we're going to expose the methods through a Godot CPP method and not a public method in our C++. So, oh god, that's fine. All right, now I'm going to actually set up both of these methods. So set speed, I'm just going to take in that value and set the value to speed and then get speed, just return it. So pretty straightforward.
Hey, just didn't get the
All right. Oh, geez. No.
So we paste the old sprite.
And then in screensaver, we have bind methods. And so we did this before with our static class where we had methods that were exposed in that static class. In this case, we're just binding a method and using the same nomenclature to be able to set the name of the method and the value of the first property and then just point at that method. So we have set speed, and then we're pointing at screensaver set speed, which is down here. And then get speed just points at that. And then to glue it all together, we have this add property. And this is what adds it to the GUI within Godot. So we have property info. We're telling it that the value we're expecting in Godot is a variant int. And this right here is the Godot equivalent of int. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. But this is what Godot is expecting to see in terms of like how you're telling it what kind of data you're expecting. You could tell it to look for a dictionary. You can ask for an array. You can put whatever you want in there. But in this case, we're just looking for an integer, setting it to speed, and then connecting it to set speed and get speed. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to run the build, copy the file into Godot, and we'll see that property in there. And we could change the speed of the screensaver.
Yeah, I'd have to. I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
So, was screensaver bind method already defined and you're just updating?
It was defined. It was empty. Yep. If it's not in your file, you can just copy and paste the whole thing.
I put it on the bottom and got an error,
Oh, sure.
and now I'm seeing those empty.
But there is a.
Yeah, back to like how all of these classes are made. I believe if you don't have bind methods at all, it will throw an error during compilation time. So even if you're not using it, just have it in the header and the source file. So. All right, just running scans, seeing my changes. Now I'm going to copy it over. All right, just to make sure I'm looking at the right thing, I'm going to delete this sprite 2D because I was just using that to kind of demonstrate what the property looked like. So I'm going to delete that. And then if I go back to screensaver, I should see speed over here. Now I could change it to 500 and I can watch that thing go crazy. Or not. Did I not set it? Did I not do it right? That's really funny. Okay.
I was gonna check, but I'm gonna guess it's we're gonna be coming.
That's.
Yeah.
Oh. Never mind.
Oh, I see. That was interesting. I changed it, but it didn't change right away.
Yeah, that's it. I'm not now editing.
Huh. Yeah. I stopped it and started it again. You know, the age-old computer self. I mean, then the next step was to like boop it on the face, and then maybe it would fix it.
Yeah, I reloaded.
Oh, almost made it to the corner.
No, mine loaded right.
So this might be.
Huh.
Article.
Correct. Also, the
I did not get to game juice in this case. I mean, come on. You saw my about slide. I build tools and then I forget to build the game that I originally started wanting to build. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, tools are great. You like build something that has reproducible outcomes, write unit tests, documentation, all the fun stuff. Some like, and then it's a, oh God. Whoops. Okay. It's a job. I think it just hit the corner. I don't know. I wasn't really looking, but I think it just hit the corner. All right. So, so are we good? Cool. All right. So the next step is actually super easy. What we're going to do is we're going to add a signal so we can get a callback whenever it bounces off a wall. So honestly, thinking about how things would work in Godot CPP, I was expecting this part to be more complicated than the getter and setter, but it's not. So to add a signal, you just go into the bind methods, drop this line in there. Make sure I'm on the screensaver class. So I'm just adding a signal. So that way it shows up in the editor. And then down here, where I change direction, I'm going to copy this emit signal method and call the same name that I have in the signal. Go ahead and paste that. Paste that. Go ahead.
So does that mean that signals are not tokenized? And therefore, a signal like a really long variable, we have a bigger binary than they did be.
Perhaps. I do not know. Handshake. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I also have the same question about these up here. Like I would love to not write those statically, but it's in the back of my mind. If I find improvements to all of this, these slides will be updated. Hoping we find improvements, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, all right. So now that we have that in there, I'm going to go ahead and build it again. And then we're going to go into Godot and we're going to connect it up and get a event from whenever it bounces off the wall. All right. Cool.
It's definitely, that is where.
Just copying that in there again. I go back to Godot, click on screensaver, go to node, and now I have this wall bounce over here. So I'm going to right click on wall bounce, hit connect. And since I still have the node in here from the beginning when I was testing the static method, so I'm just going to put it on there just as a test. I hit connect. And then here, print. All right, I'm going to hit play and see what we got. Boop, 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 boop. Cool. Everyone all set with that? Awesome. Cool. All right, so the next step, we're just going to kind of talk about the extension of like all of this. So we got through making static methods and getting data in, getting data out. We talked about taking a node and converting that and adding additional functionality to that node, extending it, having it show up in the editor. But there's additional things you could do where you take Godot primitives and you convert that into C++, do things with it, convert it back to Godot primitives, and then show it in the editor. So one of the things I'm going to start with is taking a list of integers from an array and just add them together. These are very simple examples. The stuff that I've done with this in the rhythm game library gets absolutely crazy, but I just wanted to start with something that was like adding numbers together. I figured it was the easiest thing. When I started, my examples were nuts. So this is much easier to go over. So this is, we're just going to add this to the math F library. So what this is, we just have a method called sum. It takes in an array. An array is an object that comes from Godot CPP. I have the namespace up here, so I don't have to write Godot ahead of that. And I'm just storing a count. I'm iterating through the array size. And then for each value, I'm testing to make sure the variant is an int. So I'm testing to see what's in the array. And I'll show you how this works when we actually get into Godot. But you could have an entire array of numbers and at the end have like a string, and it will ignore it because we're testing to make sure that the variant is indeed an integer. So if it is, we store the value and then add it to count. So we go ahead and add that into mathf. Now this goes inside the namespace. I just realized that while talking to someone else that my example did not include that. So it goes inside the namespace, keep everything organized. You notice that variant is throwing an error, and that's because I haven't added Godot up here and missing my includes. All right, great. So next, I'm going to add that sum method to my existing static namespace class. I'm going to go ahead and add that here. Oh my God, I'm in the wrong thing. All right. Probably need to, no, I don't need to include that. All right, cool. So we've just added that to the Godot CPP plugin. I'm gonna go ahead and add a method, actually fill out that method in the source. Oh, I did not save it. Always an issue when not saving it. All right, and then again, just like all the other methods that I have in here, I'm just gonna add my static method, namespace, method name, and the property. Just copy that in. Cool. All right, so now I'm going to copy that into my plugin. Go back into my test script that I've been using to test the static method. I'm going to change this from lerp to sum, and then pass it just an array of numbers. So if I hit play, I should get 15. And back when I mentioned that it tests to see if each value is the correct variant, I can go in here and actually add a string, and it will ignore it because I'm making that test in CPP. So that way I'm making sure that I'm cleaning,
I already did this.
only using the correct data types that I'm expecting. That make sense?
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Do you need a different slide, or are you good with this? Okay. Okay. Yeah. No rush. Everyone else all set? Oh, okay. Awesome. All right, great. So the next thing
Yeah. Okay.
I want to look at doing is a more complicated example. So for this example, we're going to take an array of dictionaries that have keys. So the array is going to have a dictionary of keys that have a name and a URL. And what we're going to do is return an array of just the URLs. And we're going to do that by going through the array the same way we did before, checking to make sure the variant is a dictionary, keeping a reference to that dictionary, going through each of the keys, checking to see if that key that we're looking for exists, adding it to a C++ array. And obviously I could have just added it directly to a Godot array, but in this case I'm trying to show you how like things can be separate. So you could put everything into a C++ array, do whatever you want with it, and then convert it back into Godot. So in this case down here, say I'd done a bunch of computations to it, or I had like gone through and cleaned up the URLs to have like the right syntax or whatever, like if it was missing HTTP or what have you. I can now go through, create a new array, iterate through the internal values, and then append them to that array, and then return it to Godot. So I'm gonna go through the process of putting all that in there. I think I might. I'm not really sure why. I mean, I guess this isn't math, so sure. I'll create a new method, a new file. I'm gonna go ahead and create include convert the header for that.
This is good because what we didn't do is we didn't.
Paste that in there. And then I'm just going to go back to my kind of catch-all for this example, the Godot CPP plugin, and then I'm just going to put that as the method at the bottom. So get key values, array, and then the string that's the key.
Is this? Okay. I mean, right. Like we can. Yes. Right.
And then I'm going to go into the source file and create the method to accompany that. Of course, add convert. Saying, oh, I didn't hit save again. Okay. All right. So I added that in there, and now I'm going to go back up to the bind methods and add my method in there. So again, straightforward, just namespace, name of the method, and the two properties. Great. Whoops. Oh boy. All right. Great. Copy that over. And then I'm going to take this example and just kind of copy and paste it because there's a lot in there. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice then.
Oops. There we go. Yeah. So in this right here, I have an array with my dictionary in it, name, URL, and then I'm asking it to return all of the keys, like the values for the key of URL.
Then,
So now if I hit save and run, at the bottom, I will have an array that has the URL in it. Everyone all set? Oh, okay. Sure, of course.
Would you say then you're like trying to think
Mm.
library, whole library built, so you include reference where you want to.
Mm. Sure. Mhm.
You'll explode, they're exploding.
Yep.
Wrapping the individual library.
Yeah.
I'll just pretty much go in there and just.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I can, after we get through everything, I can show you the. I mean, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to advertise my library. You don't have to use my library, but it's an example. I could show you kind of how I did that in my rhythm library. Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, but out of all the game engines to get my C++ into the engine, Godot was by far the best. Like it's pretty fantastic. So I'm excited to show that. Everyone, oh yeah, go ahead.
So in the get key values C code.
Yep.
I would imagine we'd want to interaction with the dictionary as like a hash map, but it seems like we're getting the keys as an array.
Yeah. I mean, I believe in Godot 4.4. There's now you can define the dictionary, correct?
There's types of.
Yeah. So I assume you could get a bit more nuance with that, but um,
But you believe it should be, you should be able to interact with it as one of the hash map.
um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then this is like, oh, that's correct.
Hmm. I mean I can look at it after. Yeah, it was just I guess a simple example, but maybe it could be improved. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions about the plugin? Cool. Yeah. So the last part, I was just going to kind of talk about automation via GitHub Actions. So up until this point, we've been building everything on our own machine. We've been building specifically for our own platform. And in my testing, I found it infinitely easier to not have to deal with trying to install, say, like, I don't even know how to pronounce it, the Windows compiler on Mac to make sure I can build like Minguin or something. Yeah, sure. I MinGW is a lot better than me trying to say it as a word. Yeah, so doing that and just having everything in GitHub Actions is just so much nicer. The only thing is when you run it the first time, it will take like 30 minutes, but then it will cache all of the scons files, kind of similar to how we do things on our own machine. And then after that, it will take like 3 minutes. Just the data bindings from C++. So like the Godot C++. So yeah, I could go through. Oh God, that looks horrible on here. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, you can just copy and paste it. It's pretty straightforward. So I have just a matrix up here of values, and then it iterates through each one of those. It checks out the repo, checks out the submodules, and populates them. So the submodule being Godot CPP. If you're on Linux, it does all this fun stuff. If you're on Mac OS, it does that, which is why I said that if anyone has Mac OS and they didn't have things set up, it takes 2 seconds because that's the easiest one. There is the word I tried saying out. And then on Windows, you just do that. And then, yeah, so this is where things kind of speed up if you've already had an additional build where it will restore any scons cache you have or the database that it creates. I assume maybe that's like SQL. I don't know. Anyway, it'll just restore that. So that way you don't have to spend all of that time rebuilding all of the Godot CPP bindings. And then if there's any changes to your files, it'll just rebuild those. And what it does is it generates the files. It builds it specifically for the release and the debug. So in this case, we're just doing everything with debug, which is why we're able to not have to restart Godot. And then it will store the cache, store the generated files, and then it will upload the artifacts to GitHub. So that way it can kind of store it temporarily. And then when it's finished doing Linux, Windows, and Mac OS, it'll download all of the artifacts and then commit it directly to your repo. So, yeah.
I noticed you didn't do HTML,
The
for web export. You just did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the official Godot template has everything in there. I was just focusing on those. I mean, you could definitely add all that stuff in there. It's easy enough to put that in there, but I was just focusing on the 3 platforms because I was trying to make it so the workshop worked on all the platforms, but I did not test on a framework with Nix OS or whatever. Just a VM with oh, you got it working. Awesome. I just tested it on a VM using Ubuntu, and I learned something super cool. Back up here. If anyone's like me, being absolutely crazy running Ubuntu in a VM and running Godot, all you have to do is add that to your Godot file, and all of a sudden it just works. Because I tried opening it and it just gave me like a black screen and then crashed. So, but yeah, I thought it was pretty cool that Godot has this compatibility mode that allows you to run it in a VM. Just to
I tried using a GDExtension that totally failed exporting to web. So
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess I'd be interested in messing around with that because I would like to do stuff in Godot for WebGL, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't messed around with that yet, but yeah, good question. Any other questions? No, everyone got everything. Oh, I mean, I also don't know all the answers, so like I might also have questions, but yeah.
Just doing a little bit on topic, but
Sure.
anybody know what stops somebody from providing an arrow miner in C++, calling it a GDExtension, maybe running one good feature, and then putting in the asset library?
There is nothing.
Same as everything else.
Yeah.
All right, I got a new plan.
All right. Yeah, just let us know so we can avoid it. Yeah. I guess that's it. Thank you for coming. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so I guess normally, when we use Godot engines for miles without, support for exceptions.
Mhm.
But there are a number of C++ libraries that kind of not only like use exceptions, but require it. I think like in my case, it's like a YAML parser that throws you a parse error if the X provided not valid. Is
Okay.
there a way to kind of like wrap that and be able to use those libraries without building the engine with exception support? That's problematic.
I am not sure. I haven't gotten to that part, but probably an interesting thing to look at. Yeah.
Exceptions don't cross library boundaries, so you could just compile it as a separate library.
Okay.
Oh, right. Cool. Awesome. Well, oh, there's another one. Sorry.
it's not super related to this, but
Okay.
it's with GitHub Actions.
Okay, sure.
I ran into a situation where if I included a blend file in my repo,
Mm-hmm.
the auto deployed, I was doing web specifically,
Mhm.
would fail even if I excluded the blend file from
Interesting.
the project. So I was wondering.
It was Godot throwing the error or GitHub Actions?
It was GitHub Actions right here.
Interesting. I wonder if it was a Git LFS issue, like the blend file was too big, and it didn't know how to initialize it.
Well, so I was excluding it from the project export, but you think maybe when it was pulling the project down.
Because it was in the Git repo. Yeah, so I assume you probably have Git LFS set up on it.
I did not. I was ignoring Git LFS.
Well, right. It might be that. I would start there. Yeah.
Just do it.
I'm double, triple checking for hands, but I think